All right, fam. So here we are. Welcome to the Crushing Limits Unleashed podcast. We have some great guests today. Good friend Peter Burmester, IFBB Pro 212, and his wife Victoria. Welcome, guys.
She's
How's
also
it
a
going?
competitor. Victoria competes bikini on the national stages.
I do.
Yeah, welcome, guys. How are you guys doing today?
Good, good, good. We both just wrapped up work, so we're trying to change gears here, put the bodybuilding hat on, talk some
Yeah.
bodybuilding, but it's
Exactly.
Sure.
always great to see you guys.
Yeah, likewise. Did you guys already train for the day, or is today an off day?
I trained already. Yeah, I did cardio. Everything's done. Checked all the boxes.
And I pushed my training to tomorrow so I could be on the podcast for you guys.
Oh,
Awesome. We appreciate it, man.
So if my hamstrings are slight at my next show, it's your fault.
By one training session.
every bit counts.
Yeah, so it's been a minute since we saw you guys last. What's new with you guys? Anything new or exciting?
Well, prep just started for me a few weeks ago, so just kind of hit the ground running. Things have been going really smoothly. I mean, I feel like we kind of like are always in the routine, so it's no different really than the off season. Just a little bit less food and just working a lot and
Yeah,
it's
not a whole lot new. I feel like this year and these preps will be a lot calmer than last year, to say the least. You guys know we had a lot going on last summer. So we won't have, two weddings, two moves, all sorts of crazy stuff going on during prep this year. But we're excited. But work's great, life's great, marriage life is great. So yeah.
yeah. No, I'm just kidding. It's great. Wonderful. Absolutely.
Um, what shows are you guys prepping for? If you're willing to share.
Yeah, you can go.
My first show of the season will be Rhode Island Championship. I've never done that show before. I've never competed in like that region of the country. So I'm really excited about it. And then hopefully Universe after that. So
Okay.
And for me, work depending, probably do Chicago again for the third time. So Chicago. And then if my schedule allows, I'd love to hit a second show this summer, maybe Tampa or Texas.
Okay.
So yeah, I'd love to do two this summer once I'm in shape.
That's cool, man. There's a good chance that we might be at the Texas Pro again.
Yeah.
That would be
Pulling my
cool.
leg. All right. Okay. I think, yeah,
A
that's like
watch.
first or second weekend of Texas or August.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good amount of time between Chicago and in Texas for me to make any adjustments that we need. And yeah.
definitely. How's the training been going for both of you guys?
really well. Like, I feel like we both push ourselves really, really hard, but whenever we feel like, our body is telling us something, we always listen to it. And, we do a pretty good job of pushing each other in the gym. So I think that our training's always pretty solid. Um, and I mean, I've been hitting a few PRs since I started prep, which is always a really good feeling. So I'm
Yeah.
just trying to keep my training intensity up as the weeks progress, and I get really stoked just to, knowing that it's coming. And especially when you start seeing those like physical changes, I'm like, oh, I really want to push my training this day. I really want to, give my everything. And it's been working out really well. So
Yeah, my training's been good. This is probably my 25th, 26th year beating my body up. So the training's not, and Chris, you know this, it's not like when we were in our 20s and you could go in there and slang and bang and throw the heavy stuff around and feel great. So there's been a lot of problem solving around, how do I continue to develop my legs, bring up my back. That's always been the focus. But I think we've made some good strides this year, and I relatively feel healthy and well put together. So probably push another week, another few weeks, and then maybe pull it back a bit and recover, and then start prep in April.
it's
Nice.
so
Yeah,
funny that because he's been training so much longer than me. I didn't do my first show till I was 37. And I hadn't really lifted weights before, like aside from like some classes and stuff like that. So I had to approach everything like how do I train? How do I learn how to train? How do I train optimally for my body? How do I train optimally for my body as like a woman pushing 40 and I'm 40 now. So it's been really interesting for me to like make that transition and now like become more proficient as an athlete. And learn stuff from him along the way, which has been super great and really helpful. So it's been so fun.
So
Yeah, what
Peter,
she
just
accomplished in 3 years,
yeah,
it took me like 15.
yeah. So Peter, just to clarify for you, it's been 26 years.
Yeah, about. I started really getting into working out when I was 12, 13, just
Okay.
doing everything that I could. I'll be 37 here in April. So it's been a long road.
And then three
Can't
years
believe how
for you,
long I've
Victoria.
done this.
Yeah, I started it's almost 3 years. It'll be 3 years at the end of this month. So yeah, my first show I did in 2022. I just like I was thinking about it for a very long time before I jumped in. And then I was like, I want to do Illinois State. That was my first show. And I gave myself like 11 weeks from like build to lean out. And I qualified for nationals like my first show somehow. I was just like really pushing myself, like, I think I can do this. I love this, And then, yeah, that's when we met, was like right in the middle of all of that and this like personal discovery journey that I was on. So, yeah.
That
That's
was going to
awesome.
be my next question when y'all met in within it.
Yeah, it was February of 22,
Yeah.
I want to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was there doing my off-season cardio just on the Stairmaster that day. She came into Quad's gym here in Chicago and stood out like a sore thumb. I was like, what the hell is this girl doing at this gym? Is she on a day pass? Fortunately, she got a membership, and we had the privilege of getting to know each other over those weeks while she was in prep and building something great.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That is awesome. Now, what days do you guys link up on for training, if any? I mean, are there certain days where you're like, all right, we do legs today, or do you kind of split off, or how does it work?
Yeah, we sort of switched well, I kind of switched my training schedule so we have more days that line up because it just like helps to like be able to push each other or if one of us needs a spot or something like that. Obviously, like the proportions for me are a little bit different from bikini than 212, but you could go ahead and say.
Yeah, I think we first try to line up the days that we were going to be at the gym so our off days would fall on the same day. So like Monday, Fridays are our rest days. So we get to do fun things, go on walks, get a little heated with some Jenga and a little
We play
competitive.
very intense Jenga in this house.
Things that won't result in injury.
Yeah,
But
that's just like active recovery.
and then the days that we're at the gym, we're not training together, but I know she's there for a top set if I need to go grab her. I want to do true squat. Will you come watch me and push me and count my reps?
Yeah, so our leg days line up. That's
Sunday
and Thursday.
Yeah.
And then what are the other days?
Yeah. So we try to line it up so we're there around at the same time, training the same body part. But we don't do the same exercises. We have different things that we're trying to bring up.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not allowed to train quads anymore, and he's training, destroying his quads regularly.
Trying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like, when we met, it was pretty similar to where we were training a lot together initially, and then I think
Yeah.
as goals kind of got more refined, we kind of had to split off a little bit, which does make sense.
I've found that's exactly what happens. The longer you do this, the deeper you get into training and you learn what works for your physique. You're not going to go off and do exercises that don't work for you. If I get a new training partner tomorrow and he wants to do like incline barbell press, that's just not an exercise that I do anymore,
Sure.
So you kind of have your specific things that work and you want to stay in that lane and prevent injury. So
And then I've encountered something where like we used to train arms together. We do like bis and tris. And I'm just like, destroying my arms. And my arms are huge now because I'm training with him. And my coach is like, you can't train arms anymore. You're done. Like, I can't, it's just.
it was a humbling experience. That's when I learned that it was a genetic deficiency, not my training. Because I took my arm training and applied it to her, and her triceps and biceps blew
They're
up to
huge.
my size, and mine didn't grow at all. So I'm like, okay, this is great. That's the problem.
Now, this will be a question a little bit more posed for Peter. What training methods have you tried? Obviously, you've been at this for 26 years. Have you tried everything? Are there some things that you kind of gravitate to? And
Yeah, I've tried everything. In terms of training split, I used to do the bro split where it's a body part a day. I've done 7 days a week, 5 days a week. I've done push pull legs. I've done 2 days on, 1 day off. In terms of intensifiers, I've tried them all. I used to do a lot of drop sets. But I will say the training style that probably had the biggest impact on my physique. It was years ago, and I watched a YouTube video about Jordan Peters, and he was just talking about, why were Dorian and Ronnie so big? It's
Mhm.
not a coincidence that they're moving the heaviest weight. If you go in and you focus on getting stronger each workout and improving by a rep or 5 pounds, muscle's going to have to grow. So I took that and I feel I made probably the most amount of progress training progressive overload. But as you know, that has limitations. Eventually things start to break down. There's injuries that happen. We get older. But I'd say that I still stick to that principle of, you know, top set, back off set, and then move on. I'm not doing a whole lot of intensifiers. If I can take a set till failure, there's no reason to throw in a superset or a drop set or anything like that.
Sure, sure. Yeah, anything, if I'm sure you probably listen to, Jordan Peters on, many podcasts. And I mean, he's such
Yeah.
an interesting individual when he breaks
Oh
down
yeah.
and just the mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah. That video just really resonated with me. I still send it to people. If you just
yeah,
get on YouTube and search like Jordan Peters and like Ronnie Coleman, Dorian Yates, you'll hear him talking about it. It was just such a logical understanding of, how muscle's built in the gym. So I've taken pieces from so many different people, from Dave Palumbo, from Jordan Peters, from, hypertrophy coach, all these, leaders in our industry. Yeah, John Meadows was another huge influence on me. He had a whole nother kind of training style. And you kind of try it and you see what works and what you actually enjoy doing, because I think a lot of people forget, what are you going to enjoy doing in the gym? If you don't enjoy it, well, chances are you're not going to excel at it very well.
yeah, 100%. I feel over time, if you don't enjoy it, like you
Yeah.
said, you're just not going to do it for that long.
Yeah, exactly.
How about for you,
It's
Vic?
interesting
I
to
mean,
me. I'm sorry, what?
you've still put a lot of time in the gym. 3 years is a lot, to commit to a sport or really anything.
Yeah.
So what have you found that works for you when it comes to training, and what are maybe some techniques that you tried and just didn't work for you?
Well, so for me, it's always been hard for me to pull myself back. Like I'm like balls to the wall, like let's do this. Like I want to like, leg press like 8 plates aside, like let's go. And
Yeah.
I think my when you think of bikini, I think they think of girls that aren't training very hard.
Mhm.
And that's not me. So I would get a plan and it's like, let's do all these like super, super high volume sets. Like let's do, super setting this, back to back and stuff like that. And until like I realized like what my training style was. And like once my coach realized, oh, this girl's like pushing some heavy weight, like I can't have her doing like 50 reps on the leg press, 4 sets. So I think that like the thing that works best for me is like kind of moderate rep range as opposed to like super high rep range and just like keeping that intensity up and not like breaking my body down and kind of it was also very hard for me to like take a rest day. Like I'd be like, oh well, I just want to be in the gym every day because I get so stoked. And like when I started competing, I thought I would probably like it, but I liked it a lot more than I expected to. So I was like, I want to be in the gym all the time. I want to do all this. And I don't think that I was listening to myself and my husband, like maybe you should chill and you'll like improve a lot faster. Although I
Yeah.
was I was progressing really quickly anyway, which was a whole nother thing because I'm so tall for bikini in general in my height category. Like my height category starts at 5'7". I'm 6'1". And so I was like, it's going to take me so long to put on the muscle that I need to be competitive in this sport. And you just kind of have to like train hard consistently for years, like you were saying, and just see what your body does. And my body has responded very well. Really, no matter what I tried, but I've sort of dialed in what I enjoy doing the most.
Yeah, when we started dating and I was seeing the training plans that her coach was giving her, and they were great plans,
Yeah.
but they were great for, maybe someone that's brand new to the sport and doesn't know how to push themselves in the gym.
Hmm.
And when it's like, hey, do, 5 sets of 50 on this thing, and I'm watching Vic do it with 6 plates aside, and the next day she can't even walk or, move or recover, and legs is programmed 4 times a week. I'm like, I kept asking, like, has your coach seen you train? Has she watched you train? Because if I saw it, I'd be like, hey,
Right.
with Vic, what I've found is her body wants to grow. Her genetics puts on muscle easily. She wants to grow. It's just a matter of recovery for her.
Hmm.
She's someone that I truly believe could grow and do well in the sport, training 3 days a week. And then the other 2 days, some type of, cardio stretching, and she would excel great. Whereas other people, it takes a lot more stimulus
Mhm.
and breaking down the muscle to grow.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, if we take a couple steps back for both you guys, what got you into the sport? Like, what got you into training? And then when did you decide this is when I want to compete? I want to try this out.
Let you go. Mine's going to be a bit long-winded, so I'll
I
let you
feel
go.
like mine's kind of silly. Like I was in law school. I think I was like studying for the bar or something like that. And I was like on YouTube, like watching videos and stuff like that. And I was watching like that Guinness Book of World Records show. And it was about this woman who was like the oldest female bodybuilder. She wasn't an NPC competitor, but I was like not in good shape because I had been like studying and stuff like that. I was like, still drinking and all of that stuff. And I was like, took a look in the mirror. I'm like, if this old woman can do this, I can need to up my game up. So I was like, let me go on like this fitness journey and like start learning about bodybuilding. And I started reading up on it. I at the time, I don't even know how old I was, but I just got so curious and then I kind of became a fan. And then I started watching Aaron Stern's videos on YouTube and stuff like that. And I had just been thinking of it. It was just like in the back of my mind. And I remember I watched this one video of hers and she was like, if you're thinking about doing your first competition, just do it. Like, just don't be afraid, just go for it. And that stuck in my mind. And I had kind of started to train for my first show on my own, not knowing what I was doing, sort of just like playing around with some weight, like, and I broke my tailbone at the gym. It was not training. It was just like I fell off a yoga ball and I like snapped. It was horrible.
Oh
And I
man.
had to recover from that. It was one of the most painful injuries I've ever had in my life. It was terrible. And so I had to like stop training and recover from that. And then COVID happened. And so the gyms were closed and stuff like that. And then once the gyms opened again, I was like, I'm just going to go for it. Like I hear Aaron Stern like whispering in my ear, like, just do it. And I did it.
Yeah, my story, it was a bit multifactorial. There were a lot of things that I feel were kind of signs at a young age. I remember even being 10 years old and going to pool parties in Vegas where we were growing up and just being very conscious of like, I have abs and, I should probably keep my abs tight and they should look good. And I remember when I was 12, I had a PE teacher and he showed us a deck of cards where, the black cards are like push-ups and the red cards are sit-ups. And you do the number that's on the card and face cards are like 10 or 15, whatever it was. And he challenged us if anyone could get through the deck. I was like, oh, I can do that. So I was at home in my room, practicing every night doing push-ups and sit-ups. And then at the time, my mom was very into working out. She wasn't a competitor or anything, but we lived in Vegas. Fitness is a big part of the lifestyle there. She had a trainer in Vegas who was an NPC bodybuilder. His name was Chris. And I remember he came over to our house for dinner one time and I saw what this guy looked like, and at the time I'd never seen a real bodybuilder in person. So I think I was always just fascinated with what the physique could be, what it could be built into. And I think when I was about, 13, 14, I was a small kid. I mean, I stopped growing. I was 5'4". My mom's 4'11". I probably weighed 100 pounds soaking wet.
You're still 5'4".
I'm still 5'4" for the record. No growth has happened since then. And I don't know, there was a piece of me of, hey, I'm not going to be taller, but I can control how I look. I can be bigger. And I remember my mom brought me with her to the gym on 4th of July. I think I was 13 years old. And I already had great kind of body mechanics, body awareness, and I was doing seated cable rows with my mom. And a trainer came over and asked, how old is he? And we told the truth, and they kicked us out. And he's like, but if he takes a class, he can come back and we'll give him a pass and he can train. So from that age, I started going to the gym with my mom every day because I couldn't drive. So it was my mom and I working out every day, and I saw how my body responded, and I loved that feeling. You get that first pump in your chest and your biceps, and you look different in the mirror. That ability to kind of control how I looked and how I felt and getting stronger, I fell in love with it, and I wanted to know everything there was about it. I was just I get emotional because I was a sponge. I was, at the time there wasn't a whole lot of YouTube stuff. I don't even think YouTube was around, but I was buying like the Arnold Schwarzenegger Encyclopedia to Bodybuilding. All that stuff in there now is so dated, but like that's what I was reading. And then bodybuilding.com came around, and I was looking at stuff on there and seeing like the teen bodybuilders of the week. And then I got more into following professional bodybuilding and seeing Lee Priest and Ronnie Coleman and all these guys. And to me, I knew, okay, I want to be a bodybuilder. I wasn't thinking about, oh, I have to turn pro or I have to do that. I wanted to be bigger. I wanted to be a bodybuilder. I knew I could get better at this thing that seemed really, really hard to other people. But for me, it felt like I love doing this. So it's kind of easy. And that's kind of how it started. I continued to grow through high school, and things took off. But I've loved it more and more every day ever since I started.
And his mom still trains with
Yeah.
us. Like the three of us will go to the gym. Well, and his dad actually.
Yeah.
But we'll all train, and it's like it's like a family event.
Yeah. And it's funny because if you ask my mom now, she's like, oh man, I didn't think you'd take it this far. This was not my intention. I think she would have liked me to have more of a balanced approach and lifestyle. But as you know, with professional bodybuilding, balance isn't really the big focus.
Right. With professional anything,
Yeah. Yeah. You have to make sacrifices and push things. So
That's
We
a
have our
great
own
story.
definition of balance.
there are times that you can bring balance into the equation, but at the end of the day, when you're competing with other people, and they're not balanced, and they're checking all the T's and dotting all the I's, then
Yeah.
I do think that we have balance in our life though. Like we make
Yeah, we
time
do.
for like fun things. Like it's just always in the back of like, yeah, we have to get our meals in, we have to get training in. Like that's
Yeah,
a given,
absolutely.
Yeah.
But we have fun still. We don't live a like
No,
horribly
No.
rigid life.
no.
We have a lot of fun. Mhm.
Yeah. And you guys know, we both manage careers outside of this. So that's always kind of forced some balance on us.
Mhm.
Is, from when I wake up till the time I go to the gym, I'm thinking about other things. I'm thinking about software and my customers and clients and work, not bodybuilding. And I feel that's always kept me in check as well.
Yeah, and for the first couple of years we were dating, we couldn't go to dinner at all. It was we went to dinner, like had dinner together for the first time, like out when he proposed. So but we still had so much fun. We would just like do different things. Like we would have our like, prep food by candlelight and stuff like that. You just have to make it fun still and manage all of the, mandatory things. So
Absolutely. It's all perspective on what balance is, right?
Yeah.
exactly.
I think you just have to have some fun outside of prep, like be able to juggle make sure you're checking all the boxes, right? Doing
Yeah,
all the things for your goals, but making time for those people important to you as well.
exactly.
Exactly. Yeah, like we just went bowling like a couple of weeks ago because like before we were like going to dinner because we were in the off season and we both got a meal and stuff like that. Now it's like, okay, let's shift to like, stuff that doesn't involve food.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I could talk forever on the whole balance thing because there was definitely a time where I was too strict, and I think it inhibited a lot of progress that I could have made. Where, I thought, oh, I have to eat clean all the time. All I was eating was like chicken breast, sweet potato, rice. I was trying to stay lean all year. I was trying to be perfect. And I feel I missed out on a lot of good growth years in my early 20s and, that like 18 to 25, because I was just trying to be perfect with everything.
I went through that too. Like after my first show, I was so scared because people will talk about like, binge eating after your first show, you're gonna gain like 30. I was very, very nervous about it because I was like, I worked so hard to like get in
Yeah.
shape for this show. And my coach was like adding food back and I was like following the plan and stuff like that. But I would only eat food that I like made at home. It was like so strict. And I was very, very, very lean, leaner than I needed to be at the time. But I think it takes some learning about yourself and learning about like your limitations and understanding that you don't have to be so strict all the time and it
Yeah.
can hold you back. I was still growing though. I mean, I still grew into the show and stuff like that, but it didn't have to be that rigid. So
Yeah, it's funny you guys touched on, I mean, you were like reading my mind. I was going to go down that road. And I mean, it's funny how much you learn along the way with experience. Peter, I'm sure
Yeah.
you can relate to this where I used to be like, we'd be on a family vacation and I'd be like irate if 1 minute passed and
I
this
was
food is
exactly
not
like that.
here. If I'm not shoveling
Yeah.
food, like it's gonna ruin my entire day. Like I am losing
Yeah.
muscle by the millisecond. When in reality, we all know that's not true. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. I used to be like that. And I mean, Vic would probably say there's still parts of me that are like that. But I used to be to the minute, my meal's at 12 o'clock and my food's not ready to go. It was just anxiety central.
yeah,
And with especially working in an office at a time, I remember like a meeting would run over and I'd just be sitting there fuming. Or like someone would put a meeting on my calendar at 4:30 and we'd all be in the boardroom and 5 o'clock rolls around. And I'm supposed to like be home at 5:30, eat, training starts at 6:45 and we're sitting in that boardroom until 5:15, 5:30, and I'm just sitting there looking at the door, like checking Uber prices. How am I going to get home in time to eat? And it caused so much stress and anxiety.
Mhm.
And I think what I learned over time was that stress and anxiety was doing more harm to me than being 30 minutes late for a meal.
hmm yeah,
And that's what I tell people. So, I still try to hit those meal windows and keep everything as uniform as possible. But when things don't go your way, you can't let the stress then be the, negative impact.
yeah, 100%. We've all been there at on some level.
Yeah. I'm going to turn this down a bit.
Yeah,
are we
let's
getting
shift
blown
into
out?
talking
What was
about
that?
prep. You guys obviously Vic started her prep and you're going to be starting yours in a few months. But Vic, why don't you tell us a time where I guess you would consider your toughest prep and why?
I think my toughest prep was in 2023. So I started in 2022. I, qualified for nationals, which was great, and I did a local show right before I did my first national show later on that year. And I think my first national show, I think I was just kind of like seeing, what it would be like, how I measured up because I was so, so green. So I really didn't know where I would place. And I placed well at that show, but I'm still very small. And again, because I'm so tall, it's very like I'll be backstage and I'm like, oh, I'm a lot bigger than the other girls. Like I don't know. but then on stage, because I'm like 5 inches taller than them, I look like a giraffe up there, but I did well. We placed fourth at my first nationals. But after that, I was like, okay, I had my rookie season. Now it's game on. I want to see, what exactly my body can do. I know a little bit more. And I think the differences that I noticed between doing a local show and doing nationals are the girls are much bigger, their posing's much better, and they are way, way leaner. So like they were sifting. I was like, wow. So doing that universe in 2023, I had to get leaner than I had ever been and push myself harder than I had ever pushed. And it was really, really, really tough in a great way. And luckily it ended up paying off. I ended up getting fifth at Universe that year, but it was just unlike anything I had ever experienced before. And I wanted to push, I wanted to train, I wanted to do all the things, but I was like, whoa, okay. And then once I did that, I was like, that was a wild ride. I had so much fun, but whew, that was a lot. Yeah. So
Now, how about you, Peter? You turned pro in 2021. Was that
2020. Yep.
2020? Was that your toughest prep, or was it a pro debut? Was it before that?
By far my toughest prep. And for a lot of reasons. It was brutal. Um, that was the COVID year.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of things, that were going on outside of work and outside of bodybuilding too that I was dealing with at the time. And if you remember, they kept pushing the shows out and changing the dates.
Yep.
So I was planning on doing the USAs again in Vegas, and it was always, I want to say like in first weekend of July or like last weekend of July. It was always July.
End of July.
Yeah, so that's what I was prepping for. So we started dieting in like March. And as we were getting closer, they pushed it out indefinitely. So then the plan was to do nationals in October it was in Orlando.
Hmm.
So, long story short, I was in prep dieting from March till I want to say like right before Christmas in December when I did that USA's in Arizona to turn pro. It was really tough. And at the time I was competing in the welterweight class, and I don't know if you agree with this, but in the NPC, especially with those lighter weight classes, as long as you come in the most conditioned, you're probably going to win because we all weigh the same amount. So it really kind of becomes a conditioning show. And that's what we were really pushing for. And it was at the point where my calories were low. I was doing 2 hours of stairs a day for probably like 10 weeks or more. And I was very, very, very lean. And, it got the job done, but that was a tough season for me. I loved every minute of it, but it was tough.
That is, yeah, absolutely brutal.
Yeah,
Uh,
2020 was a rough year for a lot of people. I was in prep that year too, but when I was gonna do Savannah
Yeah.
and they indefinitely, I think it was like 4 or 5, I think it was 5 weeks out when they were like, nope. And I was like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh,
We were all kind of sitting waiting. And like I had gotten relatively lean, and then they pushed the show out. So it was like, okay, we're just gonna hold it here
yeah.
for, a few months. And I was like, okay. Um, but man, it was worth it. That was one of the greatest experiences and accomplishments of my life. So no regrets at all.
Definitely. How did you feel like leading up to it? I mean, you're one day out, did you feel like this is the year, this is
Tired
it?
and hungry.
Or was it, like, how did you feel? Was it kind of a shock, or did you go in with confidence?
Yeah, before I start, is the light okay? I feel like it's just like
I think you're just
Just
too close to it.
too
So
close.
just closer to me.
Well, I don't want it to be reflecting in the window there.
Oh, yeah, I see.
Let me just try to adjust it a little bit. Sorry about
Sorry, the sun's going down. in
No,
my
it's all
neck.
good.
that. That's better.
Is that better?
Um, So that time I was confident, but I will say that it was the only time I've gone into a show where I'm like, this is it.
Hmm.
Um, Starting out in bodybuilding, going all the way back to when I was a kid, to me, professional bodybuilder was like Lee Priest at my height. And I always knew, okay, I don't look like Lee Priest. So my focus is not, oh, got to turn pro, got to be a professional bodybuilder. To me, it was always, there's still such a big gap here where I need to improve. So, and for me, bodybuilding was always, I'm doing this because I love it and I think I can improve and I want to get up there and see how well I can do.
Hmm.
But that year, we'll start in 2019. I did USA's and I felt great going into that show. And then at 2 weeks out, I tore my left calf. Just posing. I was on a work trip, got in late, I woke up early to do my fasted cardio, and I'm sure I was really dehydrated from traveling. And I spiked that left calf and loaded it up for my back to bicep, and it just tore like Velcro.
Have you guys seen the video? I could hear it as he was saying it, and I was like getting
It's so
flashbacks.
loud. I have it on tape.
He showed it to me.
Yeah.
Oh man. And me and
And
Peter have talked about it. Like there's been a couple guys that have done that.
Yeah. And at that point, I had put the whole year into that show. I was devastated, but I talked to my coach and we pushed through and I competed at USA's. I couldn't walk. The expediters backstage kept getting on me because I thought I was cramping. I'm like, I'm not cramping. I have a torn calf.
Yeah.
But I took fifth. I made it into that first call out, and my physique looked good, but it could have been a lot better if all that swelling and trauma to my body hadn't happened. So the next year I was like, okay, I know I'm a first call out guy. I'm there, but I was always focused on my back still needs to be better. My arms still need to be bigger. That was always, and until those things happened, I didn't feel I had the right to say that pro card's mine, road to pro, all this and that. I was always focused on the work that I needed to do. I did that in nationals, and I took fourth. That was a tough one. I thought I could have placed a little bit better there. And then USA's was 3 weeks later. And I remember getting back to Chicago and I was already doing stairs. And at the time, I was doing it in my stairwell in my building. I lived in a high rise and we had 44 floors. And that was my cardio, is I would do it for an hour at a time, just up and down, up and down. And I'm sitting there messaging Andrew Vu, my coach, in the stairwell as I'm doing cardio. I'm like, what do you think about USA's? And like, my mind's already made up. I was like, I'm going to USA's. I think I can do this. And he's like, man, I don't know that there's much more fat to pull off your body. I don't know what else we can do. And he said, when you get back to your room, why don't you send me a video of you pinching the skin on your butt? And I'm like, he's like, I know it sounds crazy. He's like, I just want to see like how much you can pinch there.
Right.
So I did that. And he's like, okay. He's like, this is going to hurt, but I think we can push it. And he made adjustments to the plan. And then I remember that Saturday before USA's, I took my check-in pictures. And I remember, what it's like in prep. You'll start waking up at like 4 a.m., and it's still dark out and you're ready to check in already, because you're so excited. And I went into my kitchen, turned the lights on and took my check-in photos. And I saw what I looked like. And I was just like, that's it. I was like, I don't know that a welterweight can beat that look.
Yeah.
And it wasn't cockiness. It was just, I'd been doing it so long. I was like, I never thought I'd look like this. It's kind of shocking for me to see. And at that point I knew, that as long as I don't get injured, as long as I don't do anything crazy, I have a really good shot at making this happen at USA's. Because at the time, I knew the other guys that were competing. I knew a lot of them from nationals weren't going to continue on. So I felt good about it, but anything can happen. And until, they call your name, I wasn't celebrating at all. I remember even after prejudging, I came off stage and Justin Randall, who was in the audience, he's like, hey, congrats, brother. He's like, you did it. And I'm like, no, stop. It's like, all I know is I was in the first call out. Stop. So yeah, that was really the only time where I felt, that I could win it.
Yeah, that's a good feeling, man. Especially too, like you said, looking at the check-in pics and just seeing something that you haven't seen
Yeah.
before. It's so
Yeah.
rewarding.
Yeah.
Well, let's hear some how about some funniest prep moments? I'm sure we probably have a lot of them.
I'll let you start. Do you have any?
I feel like you could think of it better, like easier than me. I mean, it's interesting. Like people always ask us, like, what is it like for both of us to be competitors, like at once? Um,
Yeah, that's what
I
we
think
have to
I
dive
think it
into.
goes like pretty smoothly for the most part, but like it's it's frustrating sometimes when we're like on opposite ends. Like he's pushing food and I'm eating like I remember this one time I was eating like 700 calories and he's like I just don't complaining about the amount of food he has to eat. Like he's getting it in, but I'm just like you need to call someone that can relate to you
I was
because
not
I'm starving.
I was not complaining. This was after I turned pro and we took 2 years in a calorie surplus for me to try to grow into the 212. And I mean, I was a 225-pound bloated mess pushing God knows how many calories. And you're just sick at that point. And
Oh
you're
yeah.
sitting there forcing down 12 ounces of sweet potato at a meal. And she's starving in prep. And she's like, don't even do that around me. Like,
I was just like, I can't sympathize.
I
Like,
can't sympathize.
I'm like, call someone who could go, like, you want me to shed a tear for you? Because I can't. Like, I'm no.
And to this day, we still have the disagreement of what's more difficult.
Yeah.
Pushing hard in off season and force feeding versus dieting. And I still will put my stake in the ground for pushing food over long periods of time is a lot more difficult. A lot more difficult.
I'm with you 100%. We're
Yeah.
definitely going to see what our viewers think
Yeah.
about that, but
We have
it's
the same disagreement.
Right.
But the difference is I don't push food in the off season. Like I'm
Yeah.
still hungry all off season. So it's just
Right.
a year-round thing for me.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. Like, I'm pushed to the point where I was uncomfortable, but like, not to the point where he has to, not where he's like puking in the night and stuff like that.
Yeah, literally like thrown up in the middle of the night. I mean, taking an hour to get food down and you're pacing around and sweating and it's a mental challenge every day because you can't miss a meal. And if a meal takes an hour to get down, that means that it's only an hour until the next one now. So there's no relief. And we sign up for this. I love bodybuilding. I did it willingly. There's no complaints there.
yeah.
I'm just saying it's tough. It's
Yeah.
bodybuilding and doing that is tougher than any set in the gym that I'm going to do, any cardio session, any diet that I'm going to have to follow. That's to me, that was the hard part.
yeah.
I do have an embarrassing prep story.
Oh, we got to
This
hear it.
was like this was my first, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. This was like after my first national show. Like I was dieting all year from like February to like December. And I told him, because I can eat, like a lot of people think like, because I'm tall and I'm like, stay fairly lean, like they don't think I can eat, but I can throw down some food. And so I was preparing the binge of a lifetime after this show. Like I had because I didn't have cake for my birthday, I had a slice of birthday cake. I had a dozen donuts. I had a pizza. I had like everything in the world. And he was like trying to tell me, he's like, you might want to like pace yourself.
She's buying all these things ahead of time. She's got like
I was stockpiling like the world was ending.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I never did that, but I've been around the sport long enough to see people do that, and I knew it was coming, and
I was like, just let me do my thing. Just don't stop.
And
so I eat everything, like everything. Like I think I fell asleep with like my hand and like in a bag of plantain chips with like a donut in my hair. Like it was gross.
I come into the room. We were at an Airbnb in LA.
Uh-huh.
And I come into the room. There's like oatmeal cream pie wrappers.
Just like a trail. Like it was.
There's
horrible.
crumbs. Our flight's leaving in like 3 hours, and she is just
a mess.
And I'm like, I'm biting my tongue. I knew if I said I told you so, it was going to be a long flight. But I was like, I had to let her learn for herself that this was not the way to do it.
So I'm like, I'm fine, we're gonna make our flight. So we get on the plane, and unfortunately, we weren't able to like sit next to each other on the flight. And he's like a few rows in front of me. I would say like halfway through the flight, I start puking on the plane. And like,
Oh
there's
no.
always a barf bag like in the thing. I like there was none. This this little kid next to me was like, here, you can have my, I'm just throwing up in this thing. It was, and luckily, like the girl, like whose son it was in between us was a competitor too. And she was like, oh, I know it. But I learned my lesson from that moment on. I was like, I'm not doing this again. I'm not like, he was right. At the end of the day, he was right. Like, don't stockpile a bunch of food and plan to eat it post show because there's nothing good can come of it.
My rule's always been, first of all, don't buy things ahead of time. You don't need them. You don't need them back at your house when you get home. Mine is, take it easy on the rehydration. You don't want to chug a gallon as soon as you get off stage, but start to rehydrate. You go out to dinner with your friends and family and enjoy a meal, have something that you want. But as soon as you start to feel full, that's it. Just walk away. The food's going to be there the next day.
Easier said than done, but try.
And then the next day, I'll typically do like a brunch out with people. And then the rest of the day is just my normal food. Or maybe like before my workout, I'll have a muffin or some, a couple Oreos.
Yeah. So I would say like now, like or at least I will have all my food ready to go. Like, I know what my plan is going to be. Okay, my food's there. So I can like start eating my regular meals after those like couple meals out.
Yeah.
So then you're prepared.
But I've just seen so many competitors put themselves in the hospital, after a few days with horrible edema and all sorts of digestive issues. But
and I forgot our flight got canceled and delayed, and he had to be back in Chicago for work. And I was like so sick. I ended up going to a hotel.
She
and like
stayed in Denver.
Yeah, I was trapped in Denver, and I stayed. Oh God, that was horrible.
It was a lesson. It was a big lesson learned.
Wow.
It's probably not a prep story, but it was funny. We the first time that we did Universe, she booked an Airbnb. Was this Jersey?
It was Jersey, Teaneck, New Jersey.
But this place that she booked, the ceilings must have been like 5.5, 6 foot ceilings.
It was like luxury apartment in Teaneck, New Jersey. It looked adorable. It was cute. It was exactly what we needed, very close to the venue. I walk into the place and I had to duck. I couldn't pose in there because I would hit my head on the ceiling if I had my posing heels on. We called it the boat. Like it was ridiculous.
Felt like you were on like a little boat.
Yeah.
I was fine, but she couldn't even stand up in the place for the whole 3 days that we were there.
And so I'm having to because you're doing a check-in, like posing and all that stuff. So I'm having to go outside in my show bikini. We're in like a residential neighborhood because that's all there is in Teaneck, New Jersey. And there's like kids playing basketball down here. I'm just like this sparkly bikini, peeled beyond belief because I couldn't pose inside. It was so fun. Like all of this like crazy stuff that happens is so worth it. And we come back and do it again and again and again.
a lot of good memories.
Yeah. Very true. What is something, all right, for each of you guys, what is something during prep, it could be off season too, that your partner just drives you insane? Like, bodybuilding related, whether it's food, whatever.
I can go.
Okay, go for it.
I'll preface this with, we get along great. Like we've never had an actual fight. She's incredibly supportive. We really do. We are better doing this together than we would be separately.
Right.
But the one thing that drives me absolutely nuts, and it typically happens on like Saturday, Sunday, is, with me and my meal timing, I want to eat because my pre-workout meal is just carbs and protein. So as soon as I eat that, I'm like, I need to be at the gym an hour later. I want to be training in an hour. And with her, it's kind of like, what's the rush? We'll train when we train.
I'm like, we're going to get it done. Like, what's the problem? Slow your roll, man. Like, chill out.
But this like never fails. We will go through this Saturday. I'll wake up around like 9 o'clock. I'll sleep in a little bit. I'll have my first meal, and she'll be like, "Well, what time do you want to train?"
No, but then you'll be like, do you want to train at 12:30? I'm like, sure. It'll be like 12:01. You ready to go? You want to go? Like, or you want to get out the door? I'm like, wait a minute.
But if I eat let's say I eat my first meal at 9 o'clock, the next meal I don't want to eat it any sooner than 11. Like I need at least 2 hours. But she's like, "Well, let's train at 11:30." I'm like, "Hold on, like I can't eat a second meal, and this meal is too far away. Like I'm not going to train after my first meal." And I know I sound ridiculous, but Chris, you're shaking your head because you agree with me. So I need to have a actual workout time so I can plan my meals around it. But Vic's more of a kind of go with the flow, train when
I'm like, okay, if I'm within 30 minutes, like I'm like my physique's not gonna be like, oh, you look terrible now. Like I'm good. Like we're good. We live 15 minutes away from the gym.
I got to peak for the workout.
Now I need to think of something good for my. Well, I think that I don't know if it's more so annoying, but something that is hard for me because we're together all the time. Like I can't tell if he's shredded or not. Like at a certain point, like we see each other every day, all day. Like I can't tell if you're bigger. I can't tell if you're smaller. I don't know anything like that. And I think the same applies to me. Like, do I look leaner? Do I look leaner? My shoulders small? Like, have I improved? Things like that. Like, who freaking knows? That's why we have coaches.
Definitely.
That's a good point.
It's too hard to tell at this point, which is exactly, why we have coaches.
Right.
Is the other person always in the way in the kitchen? Because Chris is always in the way. And he'll say, I'm always in the way.
Yes. And so we used to have 2 separate food scales because I'm like, because we're eating all day. And his broke, so he's been using mine. It's ours, But I'm like, if you don't get your turkey away from, like, I just have to measure my berries. Just get away from me.
but see, this goes back to the meal timing.
Yeah.
So she knows that I'm gonna, eat at 12 o'clock. She will wait to come out of her room at 12 o'clock to start prepping her food, when it doesn't really matter when she eats because she goes with the flow. And I'm like, I'm going to be out here at 12 in the kitchen prepping my lunch. And then, and then she'll get frustrated.
I think the solution is just get another food scale.
Vic.
2 food scales, 2 kitchens,
happy home.
2 microwaves.
Yeah.
Vic, I will literally be halfway through measuring my food. I'll get the protein, and now it's like I gotta get the carbs and the fats. Stephanie will put the damn measuring cup in the dishwasher before I'm even done. Happens every week.
Yeah.
I'm like, exactly. I'm not done getting my meal ready.
The meat scissors. Yeah. I gotta, cut steak at 3 o'clock. They're like dirty in the dishwasher. I'm like,
every time.
But that's really like the peak of our marital issues. So we're
right. So now we have to be like behind, like in the kitchen, like so we can get everything done. But it works out.
Yeah. No, we struggle in the kitchen all the time. Every single day. He's in the way.
We have a rule. We've had this for many years, and we don't really abide by this rule, but saying is prepper goes first. So like if you're in prep for a show, technically
I like that rule. Because I'm usually in prep first.
So it's your show, it's your scale, it's your microwave. You get your shit ready and get out of the way. And then after, then you can get your stuff ready.
Yeah, I like that. I like that rule.
Except we don't know anymore now because neither of us are in prep. With no plan.
Just to fight to the death.
Yeah.
But what about when you guys, like, one of you is in prep and one of you isn't? Like, does one of you get like upset if the other one's like eating whatever? Like, how does that work with you guys?
We don't at all. It doesn't.
No, I like watching him eat. I'm like
a little too much, if you ask me.
So he would say, yes, I get upset.
Well, upset's not the right word, but the answer is yes, Vic.
But here's my explanation on this. It'll be like he's eating something and I'm hungry and he's like complaining about it, or he's just like or he's just not appreciative of it, and I'm just like, can you appreciate
Right,
the meal
right.
you're
I'm like, if you're
eating?
like eating some pizza and you're like, it's
Because I'm
not even
hungry.
that good. I'm like, you better enjoy that every single bite of that pizza or chicken. No. But I really do. Even like honestly, even if he was like, oh, I really want to go check out this restaurant or whatever, like I'd be like, oh, I'll go. Like I don't
Yeah.
mind. Like I've gone out to dinner with him so many times when I couldn't eat. So for me, it's like not that big of a deal. Like I'm just, and my brain just sort of switches.
Yeah, you've been out to dinner with us and not eaten.
Oh yeah, I forgot about
Yes,
that.
Yeah, in Vegas.
Yeah.
It's more the server that's confused.
Right,
yeah.
right. It's more awkward with
Like, oh,
that.
do you want like a small plate? No.
Right. You're gonna have nothing. Would you like to see,
Yeah.
Well, there is something worse than being upset, and it's the guilt trip. So she will give me the guilt trip, like if I'm like, I've been on certain, bulk phases or whatever, and I'm like, gosh, I could really go for some burgers, maybe from this place. And she'll be like, what? You're not gonna wait till I'm done with prep? I'm like,
Oh,
that's
oh,
like 4 weeks away. You want me to wait? So the long story is short is I end up waiting
He
to go to
waits.
this said restaurant.
Oh, that's sweet.
so here's another thing that we don't see eye to eye on that made me think of this is the time we want to take our meal off plan.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
So
Okay. Okay.
so I've always been taught, and I strongly of the opinion that your off plan meal should be the last meal of the day. And the reason for that is number one, you don't want to throw off your meals for, earlier on in the day.
hmm
Because if I eat a cheeseburger and fries
Oh,
at
do I
2
have
p.m.,
feelings?
chance like I don't want to eat 99 turkey and rice 2 hours later.
right.
Right.
I want it to be the last meal of the day. I don't want it to impact the rest of my day's metabolism and meals. Well, our meal timing is so different that she eats
He will
her
eat right before bed though, and I'm like, that's too late for me.
absolutely.
I'm not gonna eat
Oh
whatever at
yeah.
like 10 p.m. And usually I'll take my free meal like on my check-in day because I'm like, yay, check-ins were great. Like, well, and that's how I started doing it. So I would do my check-in on Thursday, my check-ins on Thursday, do my cheat meal then, whatever. So then go ahead.
Yeah, so her check-ins are Thursday, mine are Saturdays.
hmm
So I want to do the meal Saturday night as meal six,
Yep.
probably around like 9, 10 o'clock at night. She wants to do hers Thursday.
But I can be like, okay, let's do it Friday. But he's
Yeah.
like, my check-in's on Saturday though, and I
Yeah, I don't want to screw up. I'm not going to have a cheat meal the day before I check in. And my coach is like, why is your weight up 4 pounds?
Yeah.
But then it's also the timing. She wants to have it at like 6 p.m. I'm like, well, shit, if I eat at 6 p.m., I got like 2 meals left after
I'm
this.
asleep at like 10 p.m. I
Yeah.
can't. It's such a bummer for me.
So these are the big problems that we have.
And for me, like I don't mind eating like like I like all my food to be honest. So I don't mind eating it after. Like it's not that big of a deal to me. But
I still, if I have a massive meal out or go out to a restaurant at 6 p.m., the last thing I want to do is come home and eat another 2 meals before I go to bed.
and then again, like usually like I'll be deep in like my reverse diet or something like that. And I'm like, I'm literally starving. You're not starving. So let's do it on the day that I want to do it. And we'll usually do that. So, sometimes we'll do it on Friday, sometimes we'll do it on Saturday, depending. So,
Which I would agree to not do it the day before a check-in.
Thank you.
yeah,
Yeah.
I would be
I
unhappy with my photos and my weight.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
But I think I'm more like you, Vic, where like that dinner time is when I like it. Training's got to be out of the way. I don't want it
Yeah.
anywhere near my training.
Right.
But I only do 5 meals, so I like to do meal 4. And then if I do a meal 5 on a refeed day, it's like a shake. And
Yeah.
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
I consider my dessert after dinner part of meal 5.
We have all sorts of rationalizing that we do as
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
But it would be hard to do 2 meals after a big meal for you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but sometimes I don't understand because like we'll have our like big cheat meal if we do it like at the time that I want to, and then he's like, yeah, but then I have to have this drink, and I was like, we literally just ate so much food. Like, do you think that you're gonna like losing size like if you don't have this like?
But I want to follow my meal plan, and my next meal up is like, 99 turkey and 400 grams of rice, and I don't want to eat that after a pizza.
The mind of a competitor.
Yeah.
Well, as we wrap up, what would you say, would be like a tip or two for, let's say, new couples, starting a prep
Success as a
together?
couple.
Yeah, obviously it's been working really well for you guys. We've known you guys for years, but it can be a turning point for, a new relationship.
You want to go first?
No, go for it.
There's a lot of things. I think one of the first things that come to mind is to be very honest with yourself and your partner about what you need, what works, and what doesn't work. A prime example for us, and this goes outside of prep too, it goes for our relationship too. One thing that we have 2 separate bedrooms. And I know a lot of people are like, that's so weird. You're married, you have 2 separate bedrooms. But there are a lot of things that went into that. So I lived by myself for 15 years before, her and I got married. She did pretty much the same. So we were always used to having our own space. We both can be introverts. And then as a competitor, sleep is imperative.
Mm-hmm.
In the off season, we both snore. Our sleep schedules are wildly different. I'm usually up working or going to bed at 12 o'clock at night. She's falling asleep at 8, and she wakes up at 5 a.m. and is in and out of her room doing things. So it just made sense. So I think being honest about, hey, what type of setup do we need to make each other's needs met and happy, and for this to work well together? Especially in a prep, like if you're someone that you need space and quiet time, then you need to figure that out. You need to have a place that you need to go, and your partner needs to understand, hey, a couple hours of the day, I'm going to need a little bit of time to myself.
And we kind of already have that built into our schedule. So I'm a super morning person. Yeah, during prep, I'll wake up between 4 and 5 or something like that. And so I have a couple hours where I'm just like taking care of things, like getting my mind right for the day, like getting ready for, if I'm doing fasted cardio or something like that. And then he has the same at night because he's a night owl. But, beyond that, I think just like, I know how he operates in prep now. We're both very easygoing when it comes to prep. Like, we're not fighting and stuff like that. We just are kind of checking the boxes and moving along and stuff like that. I know not everyone's like that, but, just like the little things, like, when we're prepping our food, like, if the person's like exhausted, like I don't mind making his meal for him and like, having everything prepped for him. And he would do the same for me and all of those things. And just being there, just listening, like, he'll ask me, how are you feeling? How is your cardio? How are those things going? Because I feel like that's not something that a lot of people do. Like they just like see you, they just think you look amazing, and then it just kind of falls into place. But like not everyone checks in to be like, how's it going? Like taking a little bit of inventory. And I really appreciate that. What else?
Yeah. And, going back to what I said, another thing that we learned is with her competing, and there's typically travel involved. And I'm usually, I have work during the week, I have commitments. A lot of times she gets there a day or two before me so that she can settle in, she can take care of all the things that she needs to take care of, do her check-ins, your skin routine, everything.
Yeah, get everything set up, get my mind right. Just
I'm here in Chicago wrapping up work. I fly in on Friday and it's game time, and I'm there to support her. But we're both very independent people. I make all my own food. I do my own grocery shopping, but we're always saying, hey, what do you need? I'm at the store. Are you out of anything? Do you need anything? Are you, the other day I made her a bath. So it's always putting in effort to support the other person. And, another thing I had to learn very quickly early on was I'm not her coach, and I've never wanted to be her coach, and I'm not responsible for, her outcome. I'm there to support her, to cheer her on, but this is her goal, her journey. If she's successful, it's because she busts her ass and does it herself and does the work.
That was actually an issue that we had, like when we first started dating. Like, first of all, when we met, I did not know he was a professional bodybuilder. I didn't know he was a bodybuilder.
Which kind of hurts a little bit.
I'm sorry, I just was not like.
There's a funny story to that too that we can tell.
Yeah, but so, as I started competing and then I, progressed in the sport and I got better, people would assume that he was my coach or kind of pushing me towards competing. And they were like, oh, it's, you've gotten better, but it's because of him. So I would tell him nothing about my plan, nothing about my training. I would tell him, I was like very secretive and guarded about it because I didn't want that to be a factor in our relationship or anything like that.
Yeah.
So,
and I've made posts about this, but just because you see me with her or a guy with a girl, don't assume that the guy's like training the girl and more knowledgeable and, that the girl is only successful because she is dating a bodybuilder. That can.
And people already think that anyway, because I'm so much taller than him. They're like, they're not married. Like that's her trainer or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
so
no.
many people think like I'm her trainer at the gym. It's like
ridiculous.
I would have never thought that. Like I just don't think that way, I guess.
Yeah. But I can't tell you, and I'm sure you guys see this all the time. Like a guy brings the girl he's dating into the gym, kind of like wants to show off, and he's instructing her on how to do things. 9 out of 10 times it's wrong. Like I've seen girls like squatting perfectly fine, doing lateral raises great, and the guy comes in and corrects her, and it's wrong. Like just because you're a guy and you're in the gym doesn't necessarily mean you know better than the female.
Or 9 times out of 10, he's taking her through chest day.
Yeah. Which, by the way, she loves training chest. Freaking incline barbell press over here. I don't even do that.
It's fun. Like it's and I like seeing how I mean, if anybody was going to instruct me in the gym, it would be you. Like you're the only one I would trust. But yeah.
So being a coach, Peter, you said you've never wanted to coach Vic, but like for Chris and I, we met because he was my coach first. Why, like, has that ever been like
well, that's funny that you asked that because I was like, because I trust him. Like, he's a great coach. He knows so much. I was like, I would let you coach me if you were open to doing it, but you could tell your reasoning why. And I understood once he explained to me why.
Yeah, there were a few things that went into this, and a lot of people can do it great. I know a lot of great partnerships where the man or wife is the coach of the other. For me, we had just started dating.
Oh yeah.
And my concern was I want us to focus on our relationship and getting to know each other. I want to be your boyfriend at the time. I want to be your boyfriend, not your coach. And I wanted to make sure that was a very clear line. The other thing is bodybuilding is a weird sport where we get in this habit of looking at someone and then judging them by their appearance. And I didn't want to have to do that with the person that I loved and cared about. She's walking around the apartment. I'm looking at her glutes being like, oh, that's a problem. Those aren't lean enough. I don't want to have to do that with her. And then there's that added pressure on me. I'm nervous enough as it is at her shows. I don't get nervous when I compete, but when she's up on stage, I'm nervous because I see how hard she works. I know how much she cares about this. I know what she puts in. That sometimes when the result doesn't go your way, it's heartbreaking. And I've seen her go through that. And to have to watch her go through that and know that like I'm the one that coached her, it'd be really, really difficult. And then the last thing is we're often competing around the same time. So if, I'm in Pittsburgh coaching her and then 2 weeks later I have my show, I think it's best that we both focus on our own goal and I'm just simply there to support her. like I know Ian Valier, coach Chris Bumstead, and for him it became, hey, we can't both be at the Olympia here, and I got to be thinking about what I have to do to get on stage, but I'm in Chris Bumstead's room trying to figure out, what he needs to eat.
But can you think of any like benefits to that relationship though? Because I
Save money.
I mean, but beyond save money, but I feel like one of them
Saves
is
a
like,
lot of money.
Saves a lot of money.
yeah. I mean, I feel like beyond that though, it's like you see me training, you know
Yeah.
what I'm doing, you know exactly what I look like, stuff like that. I think is a benefit to the, and I'm sure you guys can speak more to this because you do.
I'm sure we would. I'd get a lot of data, maybe too much data.
For me, there's like, like if there's a day-to-day thing, my coach is right there. I can ask a question. But I also like, because I'm a person, if I look at my check-in photos, I'm going to tear myself apart. And when I had to take them myself and send them to Chris, like before we were together, I like that he takes my photos and he does not show them to me unless they're good enough to show to me. So I have like this in-person check-in, and for me, that's a good thing. And it also is, he gets to see like me in person. So what's better than a photo? The live and in-person check-in. So, I mean, he has the full story of what I look like. So,
yeah. No, I mean, there's definitely benefits. I'm sure we could do it. Maybe there's a season where we do try it out. Hell, maybe you coach me. But
works for Samson.
It works with Samson. Good enough for him. But I think, another reason is if I were coaching her in a prep, then that's like all we'd be talking about all day long is what changes are we going to make? She'd push back. She'd have input. I'd think about it. And right now, I think one of the reasons why we've been able to maintain a relationship with bodybuilding is because, like I said at the beginning of this, between 8 a.m., 5 p.m., we're not really talking about bodybuilding and strategy about stage and prep and all that. Whereas I think if I were coaching her, there'd be so much more conversation about what should we do, what's work,
Yeah, that does make sense. I feel like, I mean, we've done so many together, but I feel like we have a good balance on, when she's in prep, we don't really talk about it much other than like check-in day. Like I know what pictures, like she said, I know what pictures she's not going to be pleased with, and I know what adjustments I want to make to the prep. But it's kind of like after that, it's like once we're on a refeed or a cheat meal, it's kind of just like we're not really going to talk about it until we need to talk about it.
Now, has there ever been an instance, Chris, where you see that she doesn't do something according to the plan and you want to call her out on it, but you don't, because you don't want to have that argument?
Or maybe you do.
Never. Okay.
When it gets,
and I'm not saying Vic would go off plan.
Yeah.
But like, I don't want to have to police at home.
Yeah, no, I mean, Stephanie is just like a robot, I mean, she's like all of us on this pod right now, where it's just like, if she has a plan, she's not going to deviate. She's not going to try to like pull strings like, oh, what can I get away with? She's not going to ask me for stuff that's not on the plan. She's just going to stick to it like a robot would. So it's been really easy for me as a coach to I don't have to worry that she's like getting up and sneaking into the pantry at night. Or,
no, I don't worry about that.
Well, I will say that, there were several instances, like when I first started, like I didn't know exactly what I was doing, or like, I mean, like I was so green at this. And I used to do little things and he would kind of like tell me what to do. And I'm like, just let me like make my own mistake. Like, let me just like feel it out and do it like my way. I want to do it without your influence, like at all. And he's not trying to influence me. He's just like, we're just having a conversation. But for instance, I used to do really stupid stuff. Maybe this would be something that a first-time competitor should not do. I would eat all of my meals between like, I don't know, between like 5 a.m. and like 1 p.m. It was like ridiculous. Like I was just stopping because I was like, well, then I have to think about food for the rest of the day.
She's like, I like I like feeling full during prep, so I'm gonna jam all my meals together.
So it's like I'll just feel full for like a little bit, and then I just am not thinking about food.
But then she's like pretty much fasting for 18 hours, and I'm like, this is not the way that you build and maintain muscle. You need to keep a positive nitrogen balance. You need to keep protein, amino acids in the bloodstream, every 3 hours or so. But she, it's 4 p.m. She's come over to my place and she doesn't have any food with her.
Oh my God,
I'm done eating for the day.
Like, I don't want to carry that stuff. Like, no.
Okay.
I do remember that story.
Yeah, just like slowly, like, getting me in line with stuff, like, getting, teaching me like little stuff like that. I'm trying to think of, I'm sure there are many other things that I used to do like that.
Well, what's great for us, Vic, is they've made the mistakes already so they can guide us.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what he told me. He was like, don't be afraid to like rely on me. Cause he's like, I'm here as a resource for you. And, I've made 1,000 mistakes myself.
It's scar tissue, I have all the scar tissue of mistakes and years that I wasted because I was doing something that wasn't optimal. And I can expedite your progress by making sure you just don't make the same mistakes.
Yeah, 100%. Well, this has been great, guys. This has definitely been awesome to hear the story. I would definitely want to hear from the viewers. Share some stories. How do you couples do it? We want to hear the questions. We want to hear it all.
I feel like there could be so much more on the topic of couples and prep.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Another time we'll talk more.
Yeah, but of course, we obviously, we'll chat as we always do. We want to wish you luck, best of luck in your shows coming up.
Thank you.
We're following.
And want to thank you guys. You guys have been so supportive of us over the years and great friends.
Yes.
Chris, I know you and I talk, very frequently. Always bouncing ideas off of each other. I've always looked up to you and your journey. I've learned so much from you. So really appreciate you guys.
You guys athletes look amazing. I love following all of them and following you guys. It's so great.
We appreciate it, guys.
Hope we can do this again, and I'll get the lighting figured out. This is our first time trying to do it, together in this room where we don't have any overhead lights. So yeah.